Hi and welcome. I'm Marty Golia from Teaching and Learning Services. I'm an instructional designer, and this is organizing my courses for you and your students. Basically, I'm just going to show you some tips and techniques that you can use with your myCourses shell to make things clearer for your students, to help them and you find information quickly. I'm going to be going through here, but if you have any questions, just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer them. So basically the goal here is to share ideas for organizing content and materials in myCourses to keep you and your students from going crazy. We're going to look at ways to set up your home page, also ways to organize the content section, which is where most things go. Talk a little bit about internal linking and to build some internal structure for your course, and creating weekly plans, which is one strategy to help students find things easily. So this is the home page that you're probably all familiar with. The main pieces are the navigation bar at the top, these different boxes that are called widgets, and an important one, the news section that's there. But you can also customize your home page. So here, here's an example, customized navigation bar that drops out some things that aren't used in this class and adds a couple of items that aren't usually there. You can see an instructor widget here that has all the information for contacting the instructor. And a special one, we'll talk about this later, but where she's got links on the home page to the weekly plans, so they're always available for students. Here's another one where, again, the syllabus is always available. The instructor contact is a video done in ASL. And lessons and activity are also put on the home page, so students find those right away whenever they log into the course. So these are all things that you could do. They're pretty easy, and if you want to come contact Teaching and Learning Services, we could find out what you want to do and help you set that up in your course. So when I talk about the navigation bar, again, that's something that's at the top on every page of the course. And the standard myCourses one has some things on there that people seldom use, like chats, survey, calendar. If you use them, that's fine, but you could take them out if you don't want. And here's another one where she put the course overview and outline on there so students could always get to those easily. We could also change the names of things on here. So for example, in this course, the quiz was used for ungraded knowledge checks, so we just changed them to self-tests rather than quizzes to kind of make that clear to students. And also, depending on what's going on in this communications course, the videos are each on a page for each quarter of the course as the instructor has it set up, and you could put a drop down. So again, whatever you need. And again, here quizzes was changed to exams to show that they were worth a little more than a 10-point quiz. Widgets are those boxes that are on the home page, and you could do a lot of things with them. And it's really just a matter of learning how to set those up. And these could have internal and external links with them. So again, here's the one we saw where the weekly plan is always there. Here's another example where the instructor each week put a different widget at the top of the page, and here's what you're doing this week, and internal links to the things in the course. Here's one where they had a web conference available, so that's always there, and the link to it is always there. If you're using some vendor-supplied content from a publisher-supplied content, Pearson, Wiley, we have custom widgets available, and we could do some amount of myCourses integration, but when they come to your course, then they click there and it's seamless to go into the publisher. And then this is just an example of something that Mike Johansson does in his advertising class, where every week or two he puts an ungraded activity called Just for Fun. It's a link out to like a listicle or a group of images. And then he has a place where in the discussions where people could just talk about it if they want. And that's just to get some community going within the course. The content is where, again, a lot of the organizational issues come from. And one strategy is to try to keep it as flat as possible, or to have things very clearly listed. So for example, in this one, there's really just 3 main modules: syllabus, weekly plans, and course material. And I'll get into this. But the way to look at the table of contents is basically as a series of folders, subfolders, and individual files in there. So modules are the top level, and they'll show there, but you can also have submodules. So here in the module course materials, there's submodules, readings, videos, presentations. And you could even do sub-submodules. And then the different pieces of content go in there. So again, depending on how much you have in terms of worksheets or notes or presentations, you can kind of organize them so they're easily found. Now, most of the time, topics will be a file, whether that's an HTML file that you create in myCourses or an uploaded Word or PDF document. But you could also put in new or existing activities that you already have in the course. So I'm going to just show you what that looks like. So actually, let me do it in here. So this is a module with videos in it, but if I wanted to, within that, I could just put a discussion or an existing Dropbox in there, and it shows in that. So if this instead of the videos was week 1 materials or week 1 assignments, you could put everything in there. Again, something like a discussion. And it comes in here with any instructions that you have. And it'll bring them in as draft, just in case you don't want students to see it yet. But again, if you want to create something new, you could go in and just create a file within myCourses, or upload something from your computer. So one thing I do want to talk about is this description area that's in the content. So if we go up to the syllabus, there's this description area up here that you can use to put information about what's in that module. The thing to remember that unlike any other files and topics in myCourses, you can't link to this. So you can't link to the syllabus module. So if you have some important information in here, in that description area, students may not see it unless they go to, table of contents and then happen to, click on that. But if they're going straight to different files, they may miss that. So it's just something to be aware of. There's also, like, you can whether or not you want to make content visible or invisible for your students. So, for example, in this module, while I'm looking at it as the instructor, I can see everything in there. You can see the first 4 weeks are published. Weeks 5 and 6 are published, but they have a time start on them. And then weeks through 7 and 10 are marked as drafts. What this means that when you go through, or when your students go through, and again, does everyone here know how to view a student? You just go up here by your name, and then hit view as student. It'll kick you back to the home page, but now you're seeing what students see. You see these show up. The ones that have a time start show up, but students can't get to them, but they see when it started. And the other ones are totally invisible. So that's the difference between having a start time and keeping something draft. Also, start time and draft or published status goes up to the highest level. So if I went to the weekly plans area as the instructor and made that module draft, students wouldn't see any of it. So again, to stop seeing a student, you just click there again. Again, when you change views, it always kicks you back to the home page. To set the timing on something, and this is pretty much the same process whether you're talking about content or a discussion or a quiz, you can really just change that to published, and then one way to do is go to edit properties in place. It'll say add dates and restrictions. The start date will always default to today and write about whenever that is. So we can make this, well, since this is the 14th, we'll make this the week after. And then you can have a due date and an end date if you want it to disappear again. But for things like this, mostly you just keep it open. And when you're ready like that, you hit update, and now that has the start date there. So, I want to talk a little bit about how to organize things within myCourses. And there's a couple of major ways to do it. One is to organize by sequence. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was late.
Yeah, also if you're bringing something into an empty shell, that should work fine for you. If you're bringing into something that has content already in it, what happens is that in your table of contents, you'll see everything you added will be new modules at the bottom.
I just realized that there's a way to do it.
So, as I say, two major ways to organize. By sequence, which is, typically people will look at weeks, but sometimes it'll be modules. And here's one example. Let me see if I could just. I'm going to go to where I want it to go. Now, so let me do it here. where everything is listed. I mean, this also has a syllabus of materials, but most of the things are organized by week. And this uses that description area to link everything. But then underneath it, here's the written lesson, Dropbox, and the test links are right here. Again, discussions, your instructions for discussions come in so students see them all in one place. And up here, we'll look at this later, but she uses a plan up here that just, again, walks students through what they do. So here's the topics, here's the readings, the textbook they can't link to, but her lesson and videos are there, the discussion and assignments. So again, everything kind of set out by week and 8 weekly modules. The other way, though, is to kind of keep everything by organized by item or what it is. So by the type of material it is. So usually the syllabus stays at the top, and that's its own thing. And you might want to break down your syllabus items into separate topics, so when students go there, they could find, what they need quickly rather than downloading a 7 or 8 page document. And then again, you have your course materials here and resources. You could name these whatever you want, presentations, notes, but just kind of things are broken out by what they are. And then you have your weekly plans as separate files in myCourses. And the good thing about this is for having them as myCourses files is you can link to them in a news item or on the home page. Go to week 2 and see what's going on. So again, if you have that kind of laid out, and then as you're putting material in, you could kind of figure out where you want to do it. The other thing about organizing it by type is that you're less tempted to name things week 1 video, or if you have to shuffle things around the next time you take the course, you could just link from your weekly plan to that reading or that presentation. Just to make sure you know this, when you have a lot of materials, and if you're using this kind of setup, or whether these are weeks or whatever, you could grab anything by these lines here and just move them into different modules or reorder them. The other thing you could do is, if you want things in a special order in the folder, move up or move down or move to a different folder. Yeah. Linking within the course. So if you wanted to do a reminder, and this is really just to show how you could use quick links within the course.
Could you do that again, Marty?
I'm sorry? Yeah. So to add, this will show in a news item. So to add a new news item, go to this downward facing triangle. And usually at every place in myCourses, that downward facing triangle is where you go to find out, or to find out what you can do next, or to edit things. But so if I wanted to do something called reminder, quiz this week, and then this icon here, the little chain, I don't know if people have done that, but this is for quick links, so you can easily get to anything in your course. So if you're doing a reminder to a quiz, you go down to the quizzes. I don't have quizzes in this one, so let's say it's an assignment. So you're doing a Dropbox, you could just link to the Dropbox there. It gives it the name that it has in the Dropbox, and then you could add whatever instructions or text you want. And then students see that there. they could click on it. It goes, again, this is the instructor view, but straight to that assignment. And that's also how you can create these weekly plans where you can have a framework set up, but then you're just linking internally or externally to content or discussions which are sitting in the course materials section or in the discussion section or the quiz section, and just bring everything in here, and students could just go to this page and link out. One other thing I wanted to mention about just getting around in myCourses, because sometimes you'll get thrown to a different page, and if you click the back button, it doesn't go where you expect it to go, or doesn't go anywhere. You can always use this breadcrumb trail at the top, and then there's this sidebar too that gets you to the different folders on one level. And you could get to content that way. So that's something that not many people are aware of. So I talked about that. Just another note on naming videos or contents or presentations. Try to name them descriptively, again, when students are just skimming the course material folder. So rather than just calling it week 1 video, you might call it, lab safety, if that's what it's about. And if you want to put week 1 after that, just so it's a little bit of a tickler. But I'll work with faculty, and they'll be looking for something, and it's week 1 video, week 1 video B, and trying to find the one they need. So again, descriptive titles help your students. Just a reminder. Other parts of myCourses are similar to the content that has modules and topics. Again, discussions are like that, Dropbox and grades are like that. So if you have a lot of assignments that you're using in the Dropbox, you want to add that other level of organization, you could put Dropbox around if there's 3 or 4 deliverables for one project, you could just kind of organize things that way as well. We're running out of time, but any questions or ideas?